Hello my hungry friends! Today we're making meat-filled pierogi. Pierogi z mięsem. Welcome back friends! This is Polish Kitchen and here I teach you how to make Polish food. Mainly out of leftovers.
What?
Today we're making pierogi with meat filling, which can be made from leftovers.
That's true.
As I mentioned, I'm preparing real Polish meat pierogi today. And I'm going to teach you the only way to make them the right way. Right?
Uh-huh. Whatever you say.
Was that scary? You look scared.
Jesus. This is the only way.
This is the only way. You can find the recipe for my meat pierogi on polishyourkitchen.com, and I'm also posting a link below this video. Okay, let's get to it. We are going to start with making our dough and letting it rest a little bit while we're preparing our filling. And I'm only doing half of the recipe that's on my page, and the recipe on my page makes about 100 dumplings, and I just don't have the room in my freezer to store them. So I'm going halvesies so we can eat them today. 50?
Yeah.
Easily.
Yep.
All right, so I have 3 cups of flour in here. I'm just using all-purpose. And I'm adding a teaspoon of salt and 1 whole egg. And then key is to use warm water. So I'm using the hook attachment on my KitchenAid, and I'm just gonna add, and I have 1 1/3 cup of warm water. And make sure it's warm, it'll make a nicer, softer dough. All right, so hook down, and I'm just gonna start adding water. And this recipe for the dough, I have it down to a science. I know the exact amounts that I need. I mean, sometimes I have to add a sprinkle of flour here and there if the egg's not big enough, or if egg's a little bit larger than normal, to kind of even out the proportions. But this recipe I've worked on for a long time, and I know it always works for me, so I don't try to reinvent the wheel. I just kind of go with it, and I know it'll come out. Some people add sour cream to their dough, or fat, either butter or oil. I don't, because I don't think you should or need to make just a regular, simple pierogi dough. And if you're adding an egg, the egg is gonna make the dough a little bit, I don't want to say tougher, but a little bit more, what's the word? Resistant to tearing. And since we're putting cooked meat in it already, we don't have to worry about it having to boil for a long time. So I like this recipe I like to add egg to all of my pierogi doughs because it just works for me. And again, some people don't do an egg, and if you don't want to do an egg, just be prepared that the dough is going to be a little bit softer, and it may tear easier or may fall apart in cooking. All right, I feel this is good enough for my dough. It may seem a little loose still, but I'm gonna rest it for a while, and then we'll add a little bit more flour while we're rolling out our dough anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. And we're gonna wrap this up, and I'm just gonna set it to the side and kind of let it be. All right, our dough is ready, and while that's resting, I'm gonna prepare my meat filling. And normally this would actually happen backwards if you're doing this recipe at home. since I've already have cooked my meat, just to show you the method. But what you would do in the recipe, it calls for half pork and half beef. And that's pretty classic. You can also mix it up a little bit and use chicken or duck, or chicken and duck, or turkey. But I would always do half of the amount of meat would be beef, and then the other half would kind of be a mixture of it. So what you would do, you can either use leftovers, like I was saying earlier, of let's say a beef roast that you've had the night before, just a large piece, and use the meat to make pierogi the next day. So I think the best method would be to put a few pieces of chicken in the pot with some carrots, just like you would be doing as if you were making Polish chicken soup. And then add a piece of beef, let it go for a couple hours, add carrots and parsley root and some celery and burnt onion and the Polish trio, the peppercorns and allspice and bay leaves, and let it cook. Then cool, strain the broth. Mine is over here in the back in the jar, which we're going to be using for the recipe anyway. And then you can use the meat and eat the rest of the chicken broth. So I think that's the best method. You can also just buy cubed beef as you would for stew, and use pieces of rotisserie chicken. You can use pork shoulder. There's not one way to do it. The only classic way of cooking these is that the meat has been cooked already before making into the dumplings. You have a question?
Yes. Do you have to use cooked meat, or can you use raw meat?
Good question. So Polish meat pierogi are always made with cooked meat that has been, like I said, either cooked in soup or roasted, or however you want to do it. You can even use some rotisserie chicken if you have some left over. Just add some cooked beef to it. All right, that's a lot of talking. Okay.
Today we're using leftover chicken nuggets.
Yes, and beef nuggets. So to grind my meat, I'm using a sausage maker or grinder attachment from my KitchenAid. And I have inserted the spiral in there, and then you're going to put in the blade. And then I think I want to use the smaller hole. Are these the smaller holes?
That's the smaller
Okay.
hole.
So I'm using the smallest holes because I want the grind to be kind of small. And then putting that tight on. And this will go on here like this. And we're gonna, okay, and then I have my chicken and beef parts. Would you like to come and see?
More than anything.
I have, this is actually pieces of duck that I've cooked in when I was making chicken soup earlier. And then I have pieces of beef that I've sauteed, and then pieces of chicken from making chicken soup. And I'm also going to use the pieces of vegetables that went into my soup, because that's just going to add flavor to our filling, and we like flavor. So I have carrots, parsley root, and celery root, and they've been boiled. And I have pieces of garlic in here that I kind of threw in the pan when I was cooking the beef. We're going to grind this up. Is duck available in the US?
Yes.
I don't remember.
It's not a common poultry, but you can find it. You probably have.
Oh wait, that was pretty fast.
Yeah, it's not an inexpensive dish in America, from what I remember. But I never bought duck either. So.
Right.
So basically, I have no clue how to use this.
Okay, so you're just talking out of.
What am I?
That's normal.
Don't have a grinder. What do?
You go to the store and get a grinder. I I don't know. I tried making these using a food processor before, but to me it's such a big pain in the behind that, and I know I'd be using a grinder on other things, like we make sausage at home, and it's just a useful tool to have in the kitchen. So Christmas is coming. Ask for it from your family. And those attachments, if you already have the mixer, aren't that expensive. I think they're about close to 50 bucks or so. I have 3 cloves of garlic, and I like my filling pretty garlicky. So I'm gonna add it to the grinder also. It'll take care of making it into the filling. And to keep it authentic, at the very last, I'm putting through a piece of bread, like Grandma used to, because in the spiral there is a little bit of, little bits of meat stuck in there, and we want to get it out. So you're pushing through the rest, see, and there goes the bread. No widzisz? Who would have known? And our filling is almost done. So if you're doing this as a 2-day event, get your family, prepare the filling ahead of time, or prepare your meat at least the day before or so, and then get your family to come, and then make triple batches, and we'll be done in no time. I'm just going to clean up a little bit, and then we'll continue with our filling. We are ready to start the filling, or start the stuffing, whichever you prefer. So my filling is nice and ground up, ready to go. And as you can see, it's kind of dry. This does not work well for stuffing.
Just as dry as British humor.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so funny.
I know.
So to help our filling with a little bit of moisture, I'm adding the broth, or stock I should say, that my meat was cooking in. And I'm gonna gauge about this much, per my exact measurements.
So if you forgot to save your stock, could you use just like...
Good question.
Bouillon?
Yep, you can just use prepared, store-bought chicken stock or beef stock, or even vegetable stock. I wouldn't do water, just not to dilute the flavor. But before I start mixing, I'm gonna add the rest of my spices. So I'm not gonna add salt yet. I'm gonna taste it in a second to see it needs salt. But I'm definitely adding, this is key ingredient, dried marjoram. And you can buy that normal grocery store in your spice aisle. And marjoram will give us this nice herby flavor. And I'm gonna do about half a tablespoon, and I like to kind of rub it in between my fingers to get the flavor out of the dried herb. So that goes in. And then I have ground pepper, and I like mine kind of peppery. So I'm gonna add probably 1/3 of a tablespoon, which I think is a full teaspoon, maybe a little bit more. And this one is particularly fragrant and flavorful. And I'm just gonna taste a little, I'm gonna mix this, oh wait, I forgot the onion. And I have 1 whole sauteed onion that's been cooked in some butter, or you can use oil if you prefer. So that goes in. Another layer of flavor. We like that. And I'm just gonna give this a little stir, just to combine a tiny bit, and then I'm gonna taste it to see if it needs salt. But my filling already smells like it's supposed to. I can smell the pierogi in the air already. Just a little taste. Little salt. So I'm gonna add a teaspoon. And you can taste yours too and kind of judge, be the chef. And I'm gonna add just a little bit more liquid because I want my filling kind of sticky. And it looks good now to me. Let me give this a stir and then I'll show you what this looks like. And I can taste the garlic in it already. It got mixed in there while we were grinding our meat, and it just comes together nicely. Ooh, I can smell the pepper.
Yeah, I can smell the garlic from here.
Yeah, do you see how it went from super dry to kind of sticky? And it's going to be a lot easier to kind of make it into little portions to put into our dough. So I wouldn't skip this step. You can even make it a little bit looser if you want, but I think I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to give this another another taste. Want to taste?
Yes. Perfect.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
No?
Mm-mm.
Yum. It's really good. And we are ready for stuffing. This is where our family event begins. I have some extra flour here for rolling, and I'm gonna put a bunch on the bottom. Maybe I'll move this off to the side for right now. And I'm gonna take probably half of this or maybe even a third. And as I said, my dough is nice and soft. It'll roll out nicely, but it will need a little bit of flour to not get it so sticky. And as I was saying before, it took me a little while to get this recipe to where I want it, because as we all know, our grandmas and our dads or grandpas cooked by feel. And if you ever asked them, how much flour did you add? Oh, enough. So that doesn't work for me. I need to measure. So I don't have to think about it every time. And you're gonna roll this out into a thin, kind of a, what you call it? We call it placek in Polish, which is like a pancake. Well, this seems thin enough. And
so how thin is thin? Let me see.
Thin.
If you hold up a little bit, let's see what the thin is. Thin. It's that thin.
it's this thin. I like mine pretty thin, but not as thin as some people.
Yeah, we're not doing wonton thin.
We're not doing wonton, although some experienced home chefs are really good at getting their dough see-through thin, I guess you could say. I like mine to have still a little bit more, a little give, I guess, so I can stretch it a little bit when I'm putting the filling in.
What you cutting it with?
So I have this little metal cutter, or it's aluminum, I think, with a wooden grip, and it's like $5 or $7. I got it on Amazon. I've had it for years now. I really like it. It's got the sharp edges, and it cuts. It's I believe it's 3 inches diameter. It cuts nice even circles, I like using it. I like the size of the dough of the dumpling it creates.
What else could you use?
I could use a glass. Good questions. Oh my goodness. Look at you just
Yeah,
on
man.
the roll.
Star pupil.
You get a gold star
Thanks.
or
So
two.
like a wide mouth mason jar would be wonderful.
You could use you can use a glass. You can use a can, a metal empty can. Let's see, what else? I think that's pretty, everybody has a can of something at home.
Something.
So you don't have to have this to cut out dumplings. We are gonna get to stuffing. So if you're new here, and if you go to my videos on my channel, you can see that one of the videos is about just how to seal pierogi. So you can watch that and you can pick your favorite method. I normally use the pinching method, which I will show you also. But I have my filling on here, and what you do, just fold it over and you pinch around it. You can use a little bit of water to wet the edges if you wanted to, if you feel it's not sticky. And then what I do is these two fingers come together on the bottom, and this finger goes on top, and you push down and you pinch. And that gives it a pretty good seal. And then you lay them down to rest. That doesn't sound good. They're just resting. And you go, this is again when this becomes a family event. You're together, it cuts on the work time, and you can hang out with family and spend some time together and talk about your loved ones that you associate this memory with, and how it's nice to be together and just enjoy food together, because that's, to me, is what kind of keeps the memories of my grandparents and people who I ate food with kind of alive and around me. So I like doing this with family.
So when you moved to the States, did you find the way they serve them different than in Poland?
Yeah, I actually did. Another good question. All right. Here in Poland, we normally, when you go to a restaurant and you order a serving of pierogi, whichever they are, they will most likely be pierogi just boiled in water, not sautéed, which can be, I think, surprising to people. Was that surprising to you?
Yeah, I thought I was getting gypped. I was like, come on, man, you forgot a step.
Yeah, you have to. You can get them fried, but you have to tell the waitress or waiter that you'd like them served fried, and then they'll sauté them for you. But normally, if nothing is requested, they'll come boiled. And yes, I remember seeing in America mainly pierogi that were served sautéed with some kind of topping, onions or bacon bits or whatever. These I will serve with. I'm really looking forward to eating these today. They smell really good. I will top these with sautéed onions. Okay, I should go through the rest of this dough and then we'll get to boiling. Before maybe I continue, I get a lot of questions about this, so I will cover it now too. Whether you can freeze pierogi, and whether you freeze them boiled or raw. So I always cook my pierogi before freezing. So I will make however many batches that I do, and then I will boil all of them, lay them out on a tray, or now that our freezer space is a little bit smaller, I will put it in like a 9x9 a metal pan and put a layer of cooked pierogi in it. then a layer of parchment paper or wax paper, and then fill up the dish, and then pop it in the freezer, freeze it overnight or for several hours until frozen. And then when they're completely frozen, you can just take them out of the container and put them in a zip top bag. And then when you're ready to eat, you can put them in the saute pan with a little bit of butter and a couple tablespoons of water, and cover them and cook for a couple 3 minutes. And when you know that the insides are kind of cooked, or not cooked but thawed, just uncover and let the butter kind of brown them on the outside. And that's normally how that's when we, I suppose, I guess, eat pierogi sauteed, is when we're reheating them. But if we're just eating them fresh, they're normally just boiled with okrasa, which is the bacon bits and onions on top. All right, now that I'm almost out of breath, I will finish these and we'll get to boiling. Do you want to help?
No.
Who's ready to eat?
I am.
Okay, let's get to it.
Okay.
I have my water bubbling here, and to boil pierogi, you don't want the super high roll boil, if you will. You just want them to kind of slightly bubble, because we're just cooking the dough, and our dough is really thin.
Looks like you got a little oil on the top there.
Yep, I added a little bit of salt and a little bit of oil to my water, and these will have to cook in batches, so don't crowd your dish. And normally when I just pop them in, I take a wooden spoon and I just kind of make a swirl in the water, and that kind of gets my dumplings off the bottom and they're not sticking together, which oil will help with that. And they're off the ground running, and it's not going to take them long to boil because they're really thin, and they're actually already starting to float. Do you want to see?
I do. Oh yeah, those are some floating pierogies.
They're floating pierogi, and as I mentioned, the filling is cooked. We're just cooking the dough, so this is not going to take long. They're up to the bottom. We're going to give them another 2 minutes or so, and we're going to eat. I think we're ready to eat. Get a nice, pretty serving dish. Lay out your dumplings. Or if you have a late guest, get one of these. You can put your dumplings in here. I would obviously fill the bowl. And this goes nicely on top. And these double paned, is that how you say it?
Well, they're double-sided bowls, eh? So they have an air gap in the middle of them, like an insulator.
Yeah, they will keep them nice and warm for your late guest. Set them on your table. They'll look beautiful. Let's eat. I'm gonna eat out of the big one because I want to.
Why not?
What do you think?
I think it's perfect.
Lots of onions. Check this out.
Oh,
The filling looks nice and moist. We don't want a dry filling. And welcome home, friends. This is what home tastes like. Come on over. I'm making another batch. Delicious, eh? You can taste the marjoram in it. Slightly. If you have a really good palate, you'll know marjoram is in there. Garlic, pepper, delicious. Try these at home. Come visit me again. Thanks to Surroundings Polish Pottery for sponsoring this video. You can check them out at www.polishceramic.store. I'm posting a link in the description of this video. check out their beautiful Bolesławiec Polish pottery selection. Get yourself a gift. Gift a gift to someone you love. Come see us again, and we'll see you next time. Smacznego.
So what do you like to serve these with?
Vodka.
That's not true.
How about you?
Yep, same thing. Just pierogi and vodka.
Yeah, that's all we do here in Poland.
Yep.
You should come and see.
Yeah.